I watched the 2nd Division, which is the one that's got the Indian head on it. They walked right through us and went up this one. It was what they call entrance number 2, and it was actually just like a washout or a ditch, and they had a pathway there. And those guys walked right through us, right up there at the top of the hill. That's where in Point Verrill was more down to the right of us, and that's where the hard work, you know, that's where the 29th really got pinned down, and they lost. The A Company and B Company of the 116th, that was the 1st Battalion. Each one of those companies lost 100 men. I mean, it was murderous. It was terrible. And one of the instances that I really kept with me so long was this LCI came, or not LCI, it was a LCVT. It's vehicle personnel. That's Higgins boat, what most people called them. Well, our chaplain was on that thing with these guys, and that it came in, and the guy dropped the ramp in the front, and some way one of the first fellows on that thing got trapped with that on that when that ramp came down. And at that time the water was, you know, coming in, and the chaplain was about the 4th one down, and his name was Chaplain Reed. And he when he came to this, he saw this guy, and his head was just barely above the water. He grabbed a hold of that ramp and held it up. And I guess he was there for 30 minutes or so, but he took 3 in his legs and we didn't see him anymore. And I didn't see him until was it was in Roanoke, Virginia, and he came to one of the reunions, and the next year, why, he passed away. That was, I think, 1990, yeah. But that was kind of tough. He was a nice guy. He was a Methodist man. He was, you know, chaplain, and he was a real nice guy. And they still had his little box. You know, it was about this long and about that high, and it was actually I guess you have to call it an organ, but he could play music, or, you know, they could, and he had that yet. And of course we all had a service there, and we sang a hymn that they always used over there. Then as things went along, we got off the beach, and we went on, and that's where the 2nd day in, we had lost 3 ambulances, and this lieutenant, that was I still in contact with him. His name was Charles Geezy, and he lives out in state of Washington, right out just a little ways out of Seattle, I think. But anyway, he sends me a Christmas card yet, and anyway, he was interviewing a couple of guys, and he came to me and he says, "Can you drive a truck?" And I says, "What size?" he says, it don't make any difference what size. Can you drive a truck? And I said, sure I can. And that's when they took me on. And of course, I was lying a little bit. I never did get into a 6x6 until it was 2 weeks later. They came in and says, well, we want to test you so we can give you a driver's license. What are you going to do with a driver's license? But anyway, what it was authorization that you could, and that's the first time I got into a 6x6, and it shifts altogether different than anything that we got today. And but I felt my way through it, and I moved it around. He says, well, that's good enough. You can back up, can't you? And yeah, I backed up. And so then they put me on an ambulance after all of that. And I did. I stayed on that ambulance for almost a year. And but we got into St. Louis, and there was one of the fellows. There was a road that went down out of going from St. Louis. St. Louis was the biggest railroad terminal that close to the ocean, and so anyway, the Germans had that, and they didn't want to let go of it, and we had one hell of a time. In fact, the matter is, we stayed there pretty much through the month of July trying to get that in. Ended up with, I think there was about 4 or 5 divisions that had surrounded that, but the 29th was scheduled to take it, and that's what we did. And that was a pretty tough time. We would make a run and come down to the hospital that they had set up there at Colville, and that was a big general hospital. That was set up right now where the cemetery that's on the beach is now. That it was a big hospital, and anyway, we were coming back from a run and taking some wounded down to the hospital. And as we went by this encampment, that's where the guys from the 1st Battalion were getting ready, because they were going to go in and take St. Louis the next morning. And of all things, the Germans dropped a mortar in there, and it caught Major Howie. Well, they had set up immediately. They wasn't going to call off this, going in, because he was the commander for that thing. But for that attack. But they wanted him. They wanted because of the morale from the guys, from the soldiers. They wanted Howie there. So it got to the medics. We put him on a stretcher, and then they asked for 4 volunteers to carry him. And of course, everybody volunteered, but this fellow George Parker, who was from down in Virginia, he was the guy from our company that had volunteered, and he got it. But they did. They carried him up there and put him right where one of the churches was. It was, the whole wall was broke down, and but right there by the steps, they put him. And that I think hit on they took pictures of that, and it ended up on the news here in you know, in the United States. But it was a time that you just don't forget. During that attack, we worked. It was about, well, it was almost 40 hours. That's how many fellows we got hit in that attack. You'd make a trip, take a load down back to the hospital and come back and see we had 10 ambulances. The time you got back, they had another load for you. That went on for 40 hours. Yeah, boy, that's one I won't forget.